All right, sit back. Let's have some fun. Thanks again for joining us on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. No pressure, but this should be the funniest episode we'll ever do. Yeah, no pressure. Help me welcome Mr. Daniel McKim. Daniel, how are you today, sir?
I'm great, man. Thanks so much for having me on. And I definitely can't live up to that intro, but we'll have a good time.
Well, for listeners that have heard several of our episodes, they know I'm not the funny guy, so the pressure is all on you, my friend.
Oh, great.
I told Daniel before we hit record, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see he looks like he's in some kind of space age jet or something here, like you're in a Kanye West video. I don't know what's going on back there. I do love that it's red and black. That's my two favorite colors. I went to the greatest university in the world, Troy University, and that's our color. So I immediately thought you had done some research and you did that on purpose. I don't think that's true.
Usually they're blue and are actually green and white from Northwest, but I knew I was going to be with you, so I changed everything. So
thank you, man. What a giver. I just really do appreciate that.
I know, I do what I can. And I've told the background dancers to stay back for a while, okay?
They're not mic'd up, are they?
No.
Well, Daniel, let's talk about, first of all, if you don't know who Daniel McKim is, you are missing out. Go right now to Google. Here's the fun part. Usually we plug your social media, your Twitter and things like that. If you literally Google Daniel McKim, the right side of Google pops up and shows you his Twitter, Instagram, his bio, the whole nine. Go right now, press pause, go just watch a couple of videos and then come back and we'll learn more about those. So that's it's gonna be a lot of fun. So talk to me about these videos, Daniel. How long have you been doing them? Why are you doing them? And how do you come up with this creative content, my man?
Man, I've been doing videos for about 5 or 6 years now, I think. And it's one of those things, honestly, man, where I feel like our industry, what I call industry, myself in the strength industry to the track, to the athletic industry, we're very, very serious. And sometimes we're too serious. We take ourselves too seriously. So why not have a little fun, create a little levity within that? And so I guess my first video started, I was at the NFL Combine back in 2015, I think it was. And for some reason, I'm from Missouri, Chiefs fan. I had this little kid's Chiefs helmet. Okay, like it barely. I have the big melon, right? So they called me Buckethead in middle school because they had to go to the high school to get a high school helmet for me as a middle schooler, right? So
wow,
I always had the big dome. So I brought this helmet for some reason to the combine. I don't know why, but I put it on. We're sitting at breakfast, and I'm there with Bert, my boss, and then Aaron Osmus at the time, and one of my coworkers, 2 throwers too. So you know what happens with throwers, right? We're going to eat a lot. And we're going to do something really dumb and maybe goofy and embarrass ourselves. So we're sitting there at breakfast, and I got this helmet with me in my bag, and I was like, guys, that's Joe Gibbs. They're like, yeah. And I was like, no, like Joe Gibbs, like the Hall of Fame Joe Gibbs. Yeah. He's already eating breakfast. I was like, watch this. So I grabbed my helmet, I put it on my head, like,
oh no,
scrunched over my head. I sat there, and I grabbed a croissant, and I was trying to eat it through the face mask. It was the worst, most ridiculous thing. And Joe Gibbs gets up to leave, and he stands there and he's like, son, you ready for the combine? I was like, I go, yes, coach, I'm ready. And he goes, I think you might need to start in concussion protocol. And he walks away, and they're like, and Bert and Aaron are like, dude, that was ridiculous. I can't believe you did that. I was like, oh, that was great. So I started a character at that time called Big Daddy. And Big Daddy was a future potential #1 overall draft pick. He was a 6'5", 310-pound slot receiver.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I was at the combine. I did a bunch of the combine stuff in my helmet and just was goofy, right? And so it kind of grew from there. Big Daddy's since retired, and I've moved into some of these more skits and stuff that I do. But it was one of those things where I started doing it because I like to create. I like to have fun. And one of the things that's big for me is Nehemiah 8:8, the joy of the Lord is your strength. And so I just like to bring joy, and I want to create joy, and I want to have joy. That's the way we can do it, as I think is making fun of ourselves and realizing there's levity and there's light to be had in all situations, in all industries, and in all occupations. You just got to find it.
First of all, love that. I didn't know that aspect of it. And now that I think back on the videos I've seen, there's a bunch of different types of comedy, right? And one of the maybe easiest and maybe most popular right now is to make fun of another person or another situation. And now that I think about it, your videos are making fun of self and the fun culture of throwing and cross lifts and powerlifting, things like that. Yours are, I just now thought about that. There's kind of this underlying theme of positivity with your comedy.
Yeah. And that's the thing is I always tell people when we talk about having joy and creating joy, maybe in your workplace or with your athletes and your coaching, whatever it is honestly the easiest and best way to create joy is to be self-deprecating. Honestly, is make fun of yourself. And so I've had people through the years like, hey man, I can't believe you'd say that about this. And I'm like, bro, I don't know if you've realized I make fun of Highland gamers. I make fun of growers. I make fun of coaches. I make fun of CrossFitters, powerlifters. I make fun of everybody, but it all underlining is I'm making fun of myself. And honestly, that's what it is if we can make fun of ourselves, that's a great way for us to have joy with, like I said, our coworkers, our athletes, whoever it is you can make fun of yourself. That's the easiest, the safest, the best way to create levity. Now you got to be careful with that, right? Because if I start making fun of myself, I got to be ready that Mike, you're going to jump in and you're going to say things too. And that's okay. I don't care. Like I got chicken legs and I've known it for years. Every time I squat, I go valgus knee, right? My knees cave in. It's like, I don't care. I got T-Rex arms. That makes me a good bench presser and not that great of a shot putter, right? So you take your quirks, the little things you do, and you just kind of highlight them and have some fun.
You know, I don't think I trust people who can't have self-deprecating humor. You know, like if you're so insecure with yourself and you can't make fun of your faults, or if you don't think you have faults, that's a big red flag for me. If you think you know it all, you're perfect, I'm like, oh yeah, we can't be friends, man. I can't hang out with that. So having that type of confidence and understanding that, I have flaws myself and they can be funny.
Yep, absolutely. And that's a good way to tie people in and to draw people into who you are and to learn more about you even.
You talked about you started out with football and the Kansas City Chiefs, and I have that image in my head now, by the way. Did you have the beard back then? Because I'm picturing the beard like poking through the little face mask.
Yeah, Big Daddy had the beard sometimes, and that was part of him. He looked older than he really was as a recruit, you know.
Yeah, right. And you draw on your past experiences, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So you, spoiler alert, he was a track guy. He was a thrower. Daniel was. You started getting into some of the throwing videos, and that's where I think those are the funniest ones for me because I can relate. I've known throwers and stuff. How did you get started? Where do you draw your inspiration for some of these videos? Past experiences, stories on the internet?
Oh yeah. And that's the thing, Mike, is I've been a thrower my whole life, right? So I started throwing in 7th grade all the way through high school and into college. And then I got into the Scottish Highland games and I threw from 04, I threw for 13 years post-college in that. So I've been around throwers my whole life. And then my younger brother was a thrower. My older brother is a thrower. My kids like to throw. So I have a lot of material, just a lot of experiences to draw from. So one of my favorite videos I did was track coaches, right? And so that was highlighting the different track coaches, the relay coach to the jumps coach. And literally all you have to do is sit at a track meet and just take notes and notice all the little quirks that all these coaches do and realize it's cool, it's fun. And that's what's great about track. It's not NFL, it's not NBA. It is a cool family of people that really love the sport. Like if you're going to do it in college, you're going to do it beyond high school, you really have to love the sport. And we have a lot of interesting people who love the sport. So I don't know, man, I guess I draw from a lot of different experiences. And like I said, now I've got 5 boys. And so they're getting into throwing and I'm learning more and more all the time.
Hold on now. 5 boys. First of all, any others? I mean, do you have more than 5 kids or all 5 kids and they're all boys?
No. All five kids are all boys.
I now just feel for your wife. I'm sorry. Holy cow.
I know. We finally got a dog about 8 months ago. They finally wore me down. And I said, okay, let's get a dog. We got a guy dog, a boy dog. So,
holy cow. Are your kids, are they started doing any kind of track? Or, no, before we even get a track, are they doing any videos?
No, my wife tries to keep them out of videos and stuff. And they, it's hard as, what's funny is they go to school. My oldest in 8th grade, I have 8th grade, 6th grade, twins are 3rd grade, and then a 1st grader. And so he'll go to school and his teachers or coaches will be like, "Oh man, your dad's video. That was pretty silly. That was pretty funny." And he's like, "What?" Because he doesn't have social media. He doesn't have a cell phone. And so,
Oh, good for him. Yeah, good. Yeah, I like that actually.
We keep that. Yeah, we're going to keep off on
that's smart.
On the social media and that kind of stuff and phones for my boys. But anyways, it's kind of hard for them sometimes. They're like, "Dad, when you post a video, you got to at least tell me or show me so I can talk about it at school."
Have you seen that documentary on Netflix, The Social Dilemma?
I didn't see that one. I saw a documentary back in 2017. I was on a TV show. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
Spartan Race, the Ultimate Team Challenge.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah, and it was so popular, they canceled it on our season.
On your season?
My season. We were there for one episode, and that was it. So pretty much what they did with that is they man, we're getting off on weird topics, I think, Mike. But
all good.
Okay. So on social media, sometimes I get some different requests, right? So I had somebody's like, "Hey, I'm a talent, not a talent. I'm a producer for NBC. I'd like to talk to you about a possible show. Can you drop me a message?" And I was like, because you hear that in the Scottish Highland Games, people for years have tried to make it a popular documentary or a show or something. And so I've heard about it for years. I've signed numerous deals, right? Numerous contracts, like exclusivity. I'm like, and when I was younger, I was like, telling my wife, I was like, "Babe, like this place is legit and they're going to make a show about the Highland Games." And she's like, "That's great." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be like super popular." And then it never films. It never does anything. Right. So I was like, "Sure, here, whatever." I sent her my phone number and literally my phone rings in California. And I was like, must be a work call. You know, I was like, "Hello, this is Dan McKim," trying to sound all like official. And she's like, "Hey, this is Monica." And I was like, "Oh, you're real." She's like, "Yeah, I'm real." I was like, "Oh, you really do want to talk about this?" "Yeah." So their idea was, could they get 4 Scottish Highland Games competitors and put them through a Spartan race? If any of your listeners are familiar with the Spartan race, it's running long distances and going through obstacles.
Right.
Yeah. Super great thing for throwers, right? We love to run.
Right, yeah.
And climbing is great for us. So I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And so I put together a team and we got on the show. But anyways, this all drives me back to, I was sitting at the hotel in Atlanta because we were filming in the middle of the night. And I was sitting in the hotel and there was a documentary that came on about social media and phones and how it was just to draw you in, to addict you, you know. And I'm watching this. I look at my phone and I threw it across the hotel room. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm done with this." But that's what's hard, right? That's a dilemma for me, is because I like to create. I want to create joy. Right. So there's times where I struggle with, like, I got a cell phone right here and I film my videos on this and I do this stuff. Am I just adding to the problem and the addiction? And so, yeah, I almost feel like a hypocrite to say it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat. I'm a big social media advocate. Like I believe in communication, and I think social media is what a way to make the world smaller, and we can communicate with almost anybody, anywhere, at any time. However, yeah, same thing. There are some not only addictive but some bad actors out there that use that communication for bad things. As soon as I watched that Social Dilemma, I didn't delete any of my social media accounts, but I did turn off all of my notifications. So I've done that for 2 weeks now, and I tell you what, it has been. Instead of, I look at my screen less because I know there's not going to be any notifications there. When I pull up the list of apps, it doesn't have Facebook with 12 and Twitter with 20 and things like that. Like there's not that FOMO, if you will, on missing out. It has felt better with that.
I did that, honestly, man. And what I also did that helped me is I took off notifications on that stuff, because you're right, that's huge. I also set my screen time that every day at 5:30 it goes dormant. Now I can override it, right? I can click, okay, remind me 15 minutes. But what I found is that like just with like work emails and stuff, I was like, "Oh, it's 6 o'clock. I'll just fire this email back real quick, or I'll just text this customer back real quick at 7 o'clock, no big deal." And then it was like, man, what am I doing? I'm burnout, I'm tired, and I'm taking time away from my family.
Yes.
So for me, when 5:30 hits, it goes dormant except for phone calls and text messages, right?
Yeah. I
So
like
that
that.
helps me to, and then on the weekend, it is completely like pretty much locked up. And so people are always like, oh, so you turn your phone off all weekend? I was like, yeah, pretty much I do, because like you, I feel like I'm on my phone all the time
All the
with
time.
work, especially when I'm traveling for work. I don't bring a laptop, and so I do my
Right.
emails and Slack messages through my phone. And next thing you know, you just feel like you're chained to it, man. I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly. No, that's exactly it. I heard another strategy that you can turn your phone to black and white scale instead of color. And I guess because it's less, visually stimulating, you spend less time on the phone as well. I haven't gone that route though, because it would feel weird, I guess. I don't know, but I just haven't done that. Speaking of the phone, so the videos that you're putting out, at least today, are fairly highly polished. Like they're edited. You have, things are going on there. Did it always start out like that, and how did you evolve?
No, man, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say, but it's everything on my phone. And and it's been interesting over the years. I've tried different apps and different stuff, but now that I went to the iPhone, I use iMovie, right? And I just edit everything there. And I wish there are definitely things I would like to do, right? I would like to invest in some lighting. I would like to invest in some microphones, but if I do that, I got to get like a legit camera. And I was like, man, I'm just creating typically 1 minute to 3 minute just goofy skits for social media. Really, really don't need to get that crazy yet. So I don't know.
I
I'm fine.
like that better because sometimes when people, someone out there right now is listening and they're like, man, I wanted to make videos for sprint, for track, and they're like, oh, but I got to get this and this and this, and it's like, no, don't let that fear of the quote unquote perfection stop you from actually executing and from doing. So I love that it was just here's my iPhone. What apps can I get? I don't need to invest in a fancy studio and all that stuff. I love that attitude. I really do. That's real content right there.
Appreciate it.
That's cool. What's your process? So like, I was just watching, I love the one the other day, the fall, is it fall yet? And you got the two characters talking to each other and pumpkin spice latte for my wife, but the cuts back and forth. How do
Yeah.
you like, when you come up with the idea, maybe it starts with an idea, do you actually sit down and write like a little script, or is it off the cuff? Are you making 100 different videos and then chopping it down to the 10 that actually work, or how are you doing that?
No, man, that's a good question, man. I would say I've changed over the years, right? So typically I come up with a lot of my ideas traveling. Uh, for work, I'll drive. There's many times I'll drive 5 hours, go to a meeting, and then drive 5 hours back, or whatever. Or on the mower, sit on the mower in total dad mode in my Crocs, and sometimes a bucket hat and my ear protection, of course. And I'll think of I'll think of a video idea, but now anymore, honestly, I'll script it out. So typically, and I've had to manage, and that's what's kind of interesting. You talk about the social dilemma, right? So what I've tried to do is I've tried to control my social media and or phone computer use and just not let it control me. So there are many days, many weeks I script out what I'm going to post on social media, like the week before. And so I know that if I'm going to post a video every Thursday morning, I need to film it Monday, maybe Tuesday, and that means I need to edit it Wednesday. So a lot of times I'll write it on a Monday, I'll edit on it, I'll do it on Tuesday, and then I'll edit it Wednesday and post it Thursday morning. But now, yeah, I've actually gone to like writing scripts, and I feel like a nerd when I do that because I'm typically like an off the cuff guy, just do whatever. But it actually, I hate to say it, but it actually helps when I script it.
I did tell you this is recorded, right? So I got you on record saying
Oh
it
no.
actually is better to sit
Uh-huh.
down and do. Yeah, I'm an off the cuff guy too. And when my boss tells me to, make notes or write things down, it does come out better. I'm like, oh man, but that takes so long.
I
I ain't trying,
know.
I ain't trying to be at 100%. I'm good at 85, 90%. I'm good. I'll just do a whole bunch of 90% stuff.
Exactly.
What, so you got so many different videos. I mean, and I tell you what's awesome is everyone hits on some level. Like I've never watched one of your videos yet that I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. Even the ones that, I'm not a Highland gamer, I'm not a CrossFitter. You can see most people that know me, I'm not a power lifter, but they're all funny and just their banter. What's been your most popular video so far as views?
Oh man, I think that's what's hard sometimes, man, is like, is that stuff isn't always going to be as funny as I think. There are times you'll see some stuff where I've changed different clothing. I have different characters.
Yeah. Oh, that was a good one. The clothing one is awesome. You got to go watch that one right now. That one is funny. I love that one.
I need to do one for that for track though. What I'd wear if I was a track coach, like if I drop in like what sprint coaches wear. Ooh, Mike, you may have just saved me next week.
That's a good
man.
one. That's a good one.
We have to do that. But there are times where I've had ones where lately I've been doing stuff like when CrossFitters meet, or when a CrossFitter meets a powerlifter, or when throwers meet. I did one of those videos, and it literally takes me like no time. I set my camera up on tripod. I put a line now so I can like actually get the perspective. Here's what's funny, man, is that I had a guy I know out in Washington is like produces like really good videos, and he does commercials and stuff. And he's like, hey man, I love your content. Just wanted to give you some feedback. And he gave me this dissertation on like angles and gave me video examples of different movies and stuff, like how to converse between two characters. I'm like, bro, this is me on my phone going, hey man, you know, it's like,
I ain't trying to win an Oscar, bro.
I know, but I appreciate that. He helped me with that, you know. But I think that, anyways, my most watched, I think my most viewed was it's really weird. Twitter, I have the fewest amount of followers, but I will have some of the biggest videos. I've had a couple of videos at 150, 180,000 views, 120,000 views, right? Which is not viral by any means, right? And of course, you don't get paid for them. You don't make any money. The same video on YouTube will get me like 40 views. So I can't figure it out but now Instagram is where I have the most followers, but because the algorithm is so different, sometimes those videos won't do as well, but I'll get more views on Twitter. And then Facebook is completely different now. They've changed their stuff. But I think my highest viewed is like 350,000 views on a deadlift video I did on Facebook. It was just different deadlift celebrations. It was like a short one clip like that. But what's funny is like, that was one that just took, and I guess that's what I get back to is we have to remember, if you're creating stuff for social media or we're creating stuff for people, you're right. It doesn't always have to be the most professional. It doesn't have to be the most scripted. Sometimes what people want is just raw footage. And so I'll spend forever doing a video, and I tell my wife, I was like, hey, this is the one. This is great. I really like this one, you know? And she's like, oh, I kind of get it. You know, she never laughs at like any of my stuff because she doesn't get it. And so I don't ask her anymore, but I'll show it to her and I'm like, this is the one. This is really good. I spent so much time on it. So good. And it'll just completely flop. And then there's some days where I'm like, man, I haven't done a video this week. I should get one out. I'm like, that one backup plan that I was never going to do, I'll just do it. What the heck, you know? And I film it in 5 minutes, put it out there, and then it gets a lot more views. And I'm like, I seriously cannot figure this out. There's no magic pill. There's no magic potion. But I think it's just, if you're creating videos for people, whether that's educational or comedy or just whatever, it doesn't have to be crazy. I think it just has to be something. You just have to do something.
Well, and I think you hit it right too, that if you're, for what you're trying to do and reach, you know, a more mass, you know, quote unquote, everyone, you can't just focus on just Twitter or just Instagram. You can't focus on just one. You kind of, not that you have to be on all of them, but you need to be maybe thinking about expanding out. And you never know with the algorithms, one of them could shut you down any minute for any reason, you know. And I even noticed you're on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn guy because of the business side. I love that you're on LinkedIn. It's a rarity for this type of content to be on LinkedIn. How's that going for you?
Man, Mike, that's a great question, man. I think that's actually how we got connected, was through LinkedIn. You're like, I think
so, yeah.
Saw some of the stuff. So I had a friend of mine tell me a few months back, he's like, hey man, you should post your videos on LinkedIn. I was like, dude, that is not the place for LinkedIn. You're supposed to post your resume, your skills, your attributes, and why you're a good employee or employer. And I was like, this isn't, he's like, trust me. He goes, and he owns his own training facility. He's like, I've been doing stuff and posting my stuff on LinkedIn, and it has drawn me in with a crowd that normally I wouldn't. I was like, what the heck? So I started putting it out there, man. And that's what's crazy is LinkedIn, and I encourage people, has been great. The best feedback, or the most feedback I've received from all this, has been, wow, this, you don't usually see this on LinkedIn. It's great to have some humor. And what I've heard from people is they say, if you want to reach some of that C-level or management type of people, you can find them on LinkedIn. So those people will scroll through LinkedIn, but they're not going to scroll through TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, but they'll scroll through LinkedIn. And I was like, well, it's kind of interesting. So it's, you know what? It's not extra work. And that's what he told me. He's like, man, just post whatever you're posting already. Just put it on LinkedIn. It's a good platform for it.
And LinkedIn is different. I agree, than Facebook and Twitter. You know, I don't want to see your political beliefs on LinkedIn. I don't want to see your baby pictures on LinkedIn. It is more of the professional side of it. And but I do like, and it might be because it's the style of your humor. Like it is a nice break. You know, it's like, oh, okay, here's this project someone did. Yep, that's nice. I was like, oh, hey, look, this guy's changing clothes. That's pretty funny. And then you move back into resumes and all that kind of stuff. So I like doing things differently. So I like when I'm going on a LinkedIn and I see a comedian, you know, comedy video, not another project and bragging about yourself and all this kind of stuff. I just called you comedian. You're not actually a professional comedian. So talk to us. What do you do? What pays the bills? You said you're not getting paid for these 100,000 Twitter views. What are you doing for a living?
Well, as we talked about earlier, I mean, you just look at the eye candy on this podcast right now between the two of us. I mean,
hey, we're going to break all your view records with this one right here. We'll get at least 2 or 3 people.
Oh, awesome. No, I work for Sornex Exercise Equipment. I'm the Midwest rep. So I work with colleges, high schools, pro teams, private facilities, you know, especially with COVID, the home gym market has just completely blown up. So I do that. That's my 9 to 5, or as you know, with work, 8 to 8 sometimes or later, just pays the bills. So I do that. And that's been my job the last 6 years I've been there. It's awesome. And I love my job, and it gives me a time. And that's the other thing too, is it gives me an excuse or a time to be in the strength industry and get paid for it. Right. So all these years, I'm a meathead. I love to train. I love to throw. And the fact that I get to do that as part of my job and understand that and be in the industry, it's fun, man. It's great.
How'd you get hooked up with those guys? I know they have a track background themselves.
Yeah. Bert Soren, our owner, and he was a thrower at South Carolina. He was a hammer thrower, went to a couple of USA trials. And Bert and I threw against each other back in 2007. We were both amateurs in the Scottish Highland Games. We actually traveled to Scotland together, competed for Team USA, where we stomped Scotland. I'm just going to put that out there.
That seems like a big deal in the Highland Games.
Yeah, well, you probably heard about it. So
it probably came through my Twitter feed, and I just kept scrolling, man.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure ESPN almost covered it. So, but we went over there and competed, became friends, and actually turned pro that year together, and just kind of traveled some and competed against each other. And then time went on, right? And so he did his job, and I did my job. Bert had to step out of the Highland Games because of injuries. And I continued to throw. And as fate would have it, I guess, as the Lord worked it out, I started working in the logistics industry and started working freight, and I actually started running the freight for Sornex. And that's when Bert was like, hey, man, I know you're doing this logistics thing and you like it. You're pretty good at it, right? And I was like, well, no to either, but I do this as my job. And he's like, well, how about you sell for me? And he goes, we're blowing up, we're growing, and I need somebody in the Midwest to take care of my customers. I was like, ooh, pick me. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So I left my job there 6.5 years ago, and man, been loving it ever since.
That's awesome. They do a good job there. We tried to get into that market, and you know what? Bert and the boys they smashed us. We had no business being in that market. We had to stay true to track and field. The weight room's a different beast there. So we're on the sidelines going, hey, we have some bumper plates if you need, you know, but yeah, you need a whole professional rack. Maybe you need to call Sornex. Absolutely. Yeah. You keep talking about the Highland Games. So I know I've seen the Highland Games, and actually I learned something important about the Highland Games I'm a big documentary guy, a few weeks ago. So I've seen it, the different throws. I think a fellow friend of ours, Adrian Blewett. Do you know Adrian?
Oh,
Yeah, Adrian Wilson. Is a big Highlands game. So, I pay attention to her feed when it's Highland, not yours when it's Highland. But
yeah, that's fine.
yeah. So talk to us about Highland. What is it? How is it complementary to throwing? I mean, I know there's a lot of throws. It's all throws, isn't it?
All throws. Yep.
Yeah. So talk to us about Highland Games.
Sure. The Scottish Highland Games are essentially like a big man's decathlon, right?
Oh, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I like that.
Without the running or the jumping, just throwing. And so you've got 8 different events, typically over 2 days that you will go. And much like the decathlon, you've got to place high in every event to win the overall, right? And so Scottish Highland Games originated, people don't really know, but a lot of them will talk about that it originated from medieval times when the Brits took all the weapons from the Scottish guys. They had to find other ways. So they threw a hammer, which was actually a blacksmith hammer. They would throw cannonballs, which would soon become our
shot put.
Yep. And so those type of things. And so they would compete. Who's the biggest, who's the strongest, who's the best warrior of the clan. And so that was the Scottish Highland Games. It's since then it's grown and morphed into competition and festivals in Scotland. It's real big. I mean, of course, there's a lot of different things, but the U.S. it's grown over the years. I competed at a games a couple of years ago. That was the 150th year they've done it. Right. So it's
here in the U.S.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so can you describe the 8 different throws?
Yep. You've got 2 different stones. So you've got a roughly 16 and then a 22. The heavier one, you throw a standing throw, like you would do a standing throw shot put. The 16-pound you can do a glide, reverse, glide, a spin, South African, whatever you want to do. You've got 2 different weights, a 28 and a 56-pound weight. Kind of imagine like a double spin discus. So turning twice like you would a discus almost. Okay. Throwing that. You got 2 different hammers, a 16 and 22-pound hammer. So it's a ball on a 50-inch handle, which is usually PVC conduit or rattan rod. And you throw that. You can't approach that. You got to keep your feet on the ground locked in. So it's just more like a wind and throw. And of course you have the weight over bar, which is like keg toss for height. Mm-hmm. Imagine the pole vault bar going up, who can clear it the highest. You got a 56-pound weight with a handle you got to throw with one hand up over your back. And then lastly, the Camber Toss, which is the most popular. That's on different TV shows and movies. And you run, it's like imagine balancing a broomstick, but it's 16 to 22 foot long and 120 to 140 pounds. And you got to flip it end over end. And so it's measured on accuracy. The closest person or the most time somebody can turn it to 12 o'clock, that's the winner.
So that Camber Toss, which I would agree is probably the most popular. If someone thinks Highland Games, they think of that Camber Toss. Before I watched this documentary, I thought it was, and I'm going to use a very tough word here, easy, in the sense of I thought everybody threw it and it was a distance thing. But
we're done here, Mike.
Yeah. But this documentary talked about like most people don't even get it end over end. Like it's not, that's what I meant by easy. Like it's always going to go end over end. And then some people throw 2 feet, some people throw 20 feet. But I didn't know that it was actually hard just to get it over to end over end. Like that was a big deal. Like people getting it that far, like, oh, okay, well you're getting a mark now.
Yeah. So typically what it is so let's say there's a competition with 10 guys. A good caber competition would be 3 of those 10 can actually turn it. Again, this is me saying that some people would say they want 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. But a good competition is 3 guys can turn it and only 1 guy can turn at 12 o'clock. That's like a perfect, right?
Right.
So you're looking at, in the pro class, you're looking at a caber is typically 16 to 23 foot long and 95 to 160 pounds, 150 pounds, right? The longer it is and the heavier it is, the harder it is. The less taper, the harder it is. So that's what's cool about the caber is when I would compete in the Pacific Northwest, the cabers are completely different than they were here in the Midwest.
Huh.
Right? Or you go to, because the trees are so different, right? And so that's what's cool is we would go out to the Pacific Northwest and they're super long, but super skinny because of all the trees out there. The Midwest, you typically have a shorter one that's real heavy and has a big taper, because that's kind of how our trees are around here. And so, but what's great is when I turned pro my first year, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I was getting smoked in the weights for distance. Hammers were okay. Stones, I was a shot putter. I was all right. But I realized, okay, Camber is the event. So Camber, they typically hold at lunchtime when there's the biggest crowds. They usually do it around the opening ceremony with the mass bands come in. Sometimes the bagpipers will lead you in. You guys carry it in and the crowd's there. It's awesome, right? And so people don't care about how far you throw the weights or the stones, the crowd. But man, if you turn that Camber, you are
deal.
A big deal. And so I realized real quick, I was like, man, as I learn these other events, if I can be really good at this Camber thing, then that's going to help me a lot. And so it helped me get some invites early on in my pro career from amateur to pro, because it was like, he's middle overall, but man, he smokes the Camber and the crowd goes crazy. That's what's great about the Scottish Highland Games versus track and field sometimes throwing, was that afterwards people are holding your kids. Hey, can you hold my kid and take a picture? I'm like, yeah, this never happens.
You want me to shot put them for you?
So that's what's cool about the Camber Toss. Now, the most demoralizing thing is, like you said, people don't turn it. It was Worlds 2017 in Holland, and nobody could turn that. They brought out the heaviest Camber I think I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure they soaked it in the pond for like a month beforehand. This thing was so heavy. I was like, man, we're not going to be able to turn this, And so everyone went through, and if you don't turn it, they take out a chainsaw and they start cutting an end off of there. Really? It's only happened a couple times, maybe one other time in my career, where it's like, oh man, the crowd's like, boo! These guys are bums. They can't turn it. And you're just like, we're in Worlds, leave us alone. This is a tough one. So yeah, that's pretty demoralizing when they pull out the chainsaw and cut it down.
So that brings up, and we're going to talk about your track background next. In track, we're very, the discus has to weigh a certain amount, the angle, the shot put, the circumference, the hammer, everything is very, within 0.001 type of stuff, right? Even measuring, right? We get laser measuring devices. We measure down to the nearest centimeter and all this kind of stuff. This feels not that way.
Right. That's what's cool. And that's two things on that, man, is that it's what's I love about the Scottish Highland Games, and it's what's hardest for track guys to make the adjustment to. Right? I was a thrower for years. I know you walk out like, oh man, coach, this ring is slow. I am not going to throw very far today. We're like, oh, there's a drizzle. Yep. Well, there goes my best throws. And it's like, oh, my shot put didn't weigh in. What am I going to do? I probably am going to quit now. And now I'm over exaggerating on some of that, but you get the idea. Highland Games, there's no standardized stone, right? So we might throw a 26-pound boulder in California that's just horrible. But then you come to, say, out in the Northeast, and they've got a perfect 16. It's like flat on one side, curved on the other. You get a really good tuck on your chin. You just never know. But what's cool about that is that they're the same implements guys have thrown. So at Pleasanton, California, we throw there's a 19.5-pound stone that's huge to throw our open stone, which means you turn and spin. Well, the record holder at that games is Brian Oldfield, right? And so yeah, it's like, wow. This is the stone that Oldfield threw out there 63 feet, right? So this is there's a lot of history to it. So you get to throw the same things. You might go to a competition that has on the weights, it may have a D handle, when the next week it may be a ring handle. And so you just never know. Now, as you go more, you realize, but you're going to throw historic implements, which is really cool. You may I've thrown out of dirt before. I've thrown off of turf before. I've thrown off of grass. I've thrown in shin-high water before. And what's great is that it's not standardized, and you know how your throws match up many times with the people that threw 20, 30, 40 years ago.
It seems like it's more about competition of the day, because everybody's throwing the same. for that competition, everybody's throwing the same, and you can compare on the historical of that meet, right? Because they use the same stones and stuff, but you can't necessarily compare yourself to someone who, if you're throwing in South Carolina and someone's throwing in Washington the same day, you can't compare distances, right? Because he could be throwing 19, you could be throwing 20.
Right. Now there are world records in the event, right?
I was going to ask, how does that happen, right?
Yeah. And it's hard because there are standards in terms of like the hammer. It has to be within 50 inches. So you can't go throw a 54-inch hammer and claim it as a world record. But you may throw a lead ball one week, the next week it's a steel ball, so it's bigger, or you got a half moon shape. Or on the weights, maybe one week you're throwing a ball, and the next week it's a block weight. So typically the ball flies further, but maybe you have a better handle on the block. So anyway, so the weights have to be within 28 inches. So there's still parameters you have to stay in, but there's not like a standardized weighted measurement.
What about the actual weight of the implement? Because you're talking about the weight of the implement could change. Is there a set weight for the record?
Yeah, so it's always going to be, and the hammers are always going to be 16 and 22 pounds. The weights are always going to be 28 and 56. They always got to weigh that. Now, there's open stone and Braemar stone, it's called. Braemar stone is the standing. You can't do approach, you got to stand. That has to be at least 22 pounds. I've thrown a 92-pound stone before. It was horrible.
Jeez.
Excuse me. So it has to be at least 22 pounds. So that's where you find, that's the only, like, where you can tweak. And guys know, they're like, hey man, if you go out to Loon Mountain in New Hampshire, they've got a 16.0079 weighted stone that's like perfect, great. And you know, if I want to get a big mark in the open stone, like shot put, that's my place to do it. Versus Pleasanton, California, it's 19 and a half pounds, and Brian Oldfield only threw it 62 feet. Guess what? You're not going to throw it very far.
It always amazes me, as a manufacturer of implements specifically, they have mins and maxes. And I always wondered about the max. I was like, hey man, if a guy decides to throw a 2.5K discus that day, knock yourself out, man. As long as it doesn't go under 2K, but if you want to go heavier, knock yourself out.
I would have no problem. Do it, buddy.
Exactly. Yeah, all the competitors as well. Knock yourself out. Yeah, never understood the maximum side to the implements. Well, let's go. That's fascinating. I love that, and it is. It was interesting to learn about the Camber Toss. That seems to be the most variable with all these events because of the density, the taper. That's interesting. So talk to us about track. You grew up in Maryville, Missouri. You went to Northwest Missouri State. What was your college career like? How'd that go?
Excuse me. It was good, man. That's the thing is, my first coach, he was a grad assistant coach, Shiloh Eaton is his name. And for the first 2 years, he taught me a lot about throwing. I was a thrower in high school and I liked to throw. I loved throwing, but I wasn't a fan. I wasn't like I wasn't a fan of the sport. And so he kind of taught me. He was asking me like, hey, who's the gold medalist last year? What's the world record? What's this and that? Who's the big throwers currently? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, but if I were to ask you about the NFL or NBA or baseball, you would know these things. So he's like, you're here. And that's what I always tell college athletes that I meet with. And I try to encourage them is you're here on scholarship or you're here walking on because you love it. Then you need to be a fan of the sport. You know these things. And so, man, I just really poured myself into just watching videos. That was back when the ring was real popular.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would just watch videos and videos and videos of throwers and just like, man, this is so cool. And I became a fan. I became addicted to throwing. And much to my fault, I felt like at the time my throws coach training program was too easy. Okay. So that was 3 days a week we had to train, and that was about an hour and a half, and that wasn't hard enough. So I would go in before and do about 2 hours of my own training and then lifting, and then do his for about an hour and a half.
Every coach's nightmare right here.
Yeah. Don't do this, guys. And then I would go out and we would throw for, 2 hours, and then we'd have 30 minutes to an hour of, fall like sprints. And I remember going on, I'm like, man, I'm just not seeing any gains. I don't know what the deal is. And I really didn't click until I got into the Scottish Highland, until I got post-college and like, wow, I have a real job. I'm married. I don't have time to spend 8 hours of training every day. And like, wow, I'm gaining weight. I'm getting stronger and all these things. And so, yeah, that was something I wish somebody had pulled me aside and said, look, dude, you're overdoing it. I know you love it and you're excited, but you're overdoing it.
Yeah, more is always better, right? That's the young man's folly right there.
That's right.
No old man has that habit, by the way. No old man says, "Well, I'm just gonna do more." It's like, oh, I need rest. You learn about how important rest is as you get older. That's for sure. So what was it like competing in college? You named your first coach there. You talked about, who seemed like he had say his name again. That seemed like the greatest name in the world.
Shiloh Eaton.
Shiloh E. That's a good name. I like that. Who were some other coaches that influenced you while you were there?
Yeah, man. Shiloh was awesome, and he was the big one who really taught me a lot, and really showed me kind of what it was to compete. And that's what was interesting about my career, man. Is I was a D2 thrower at Northwest Missouri State, and I went to 6 nationals, indoor and outdoor, right? To 6 nationals. I was seeded to be an All-American every time. And I only came out as an All-American one time, and I finished 8th to do it. And it was hard, man. I choke master, big time choke master. And so I would always get there and I would tighten up and I'd get nervous and I would blow it. And it used to frustrate me so much. And and that's what's interesting is that experience taught me a lot in the Scottish Highland Games and my competing years of that. And so one thing I told myself was like, okay, I love this sport. I love throwing Scottish Highland Games. I want to do this. And when I turned pro, I told my wife, I just want 5 years as a pro. 10 years later, I retired. So see who won that one. No, but so what I did is I knew that, man. I was like, man, I have to fix this. I cannot be a choke artist in the Scottish Highland Games. I cannot do this because there's 8 events versus 1. So if I mess up in the open stone, like, good luck fixing it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just going to like, you got to get that mental state out of you. And so I really, honestly, man, I really worked hard to try and fix that, because I knew, and that's what's cool, man. And that's how just God has taken me through this sport, and how I feel like he kind of fixed some of that, because I think there are so many world and national championships to where it came down to the last throw. And if I'd have been like I was in college, I wouldn't even have been in that position to be there to make a big throw. And the fact that you could get a big throw. So anyways, so what I would do is in these practices, and this is something I've encouraged people to do. If you feel like you're choking a lot, you have to create those situations as a thrower. So I threw against ghost throwers all the time. And I would do it by name and I would do it by situation, right? So I would go, like in the lightweight for distance, I'd be in practice. I said, okay, I have 3 throws. Mike has thrown 80. I have to throw 82 and I got to save it, right? And that's the other thing too, is I tell people is like, don't foul your throws in practice. Just stay in the ring, because it's a totally different throw to me. I know a lot of throws coaches don't care about that and they don't worry about it. I'm just saying, for me as a guy who used to choke a lot, it was a huge difference when I did that. When I quit fouling my throws. You're going to foul your throws sometimes, but like, just not being that lazy, stepping over the toe board. So anyways, so I would create ghost throwers. And so I would go, okay, I got to throw 82. And like my first throws, I'm like 80. I was like, doggone, I got to get it. And it might come down the last throw, but I would create the situations. Or I would say, maybe the hammer, the light hammer, I'd say, okay, I've got 6 throws and I have to throw at least 4 of them over 138 today. And there were times where I'm like, wow, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And I would just keep throwing and throwing. Finally, something would click, or I would wake myself up a little bit and I would start hitting my positions and make that, right? And so those are the things that always helped me, man, because in college, I was a choke artist. And I know it used to frustrate my coaches too.
Yeah, always, right. That's interesting, because I was going to ask, what was the difference between, college, and a little bit of it's a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes, right? We get down on ourselves. We put more pressure than more than the correct amount of pressure. Pressure is important, but we put too much pressure and it just caves in, right? And now we see you as an adult in the videos, and we're seeing a curated portion of it, but we see a happy, jovial, God-loving person. I was going to ask what was the change, but you explained there you had to actually practice it. Like first of all, you had to get conscious about it, right? Like, oh, hey, this is not, I don't hesitate to say normal, but hey, this is not I'm not moving forward with this type of attitude. So what do I got to do to change that mental state, that attitude? And you actually had to practice it. I like that, like real world example there of something that if you're frustrated with something and you just keep piling on yourself, okay, maybe you just need to take a step back and not maybe it's not a book, maybe it's not an audio, maybe it's not a talking it out, maybe it is practicing being in those situations and being successful with them.
Yeah, and that's a great point, man, is you kind of create the success. So even success in practice builds that confidence, right? And there are days where I would throw against my ghost throwers and I would name them by name. Okay, Mike has thrown this, Matt's thrown this, Sean did this, and I got to throw this. And there are plenty of days they beat me, but there are plenty of days where I beat them, right? And there are a lot of days I beat them. And it was finding that mental state. And I think sometimes we don't do enough as throwers is we don't put our mentals in practice. We don't put ourselves in those situations. And if you've ever been in football practice or basketball practice, coaches do this all the time where they'll say, 2 minutes on the clock, this is the situation. And I feel like throwers, we don't do that. And so when I got into those situations, I had no experience. Here I was at nationals. I should throw I threw this far to get here. I should throw that again versus competing. And the other thing too, man, that I learned a lot was 2012 World Championships, the Highland Games were in Calgary, Canada. And I was like, okay. And I'd run the numbers, right? I'd done the numbers for weeks. And I said, okay, I'm going to throw this in this event. He's going to throw this and that and this and that. I went down the line and I was like, if I just have an average day, I win worlds. If I just have an average day. And so I went into that competition. I competed not to lose. I didn't compete to win, if that makes sense. And so what happened? I had an average day and I finished third. And so that always stuck with me since then. And for the years after that even was like, I'm never going to not compete. I have to compete to win. Because I know I'm not as strong as other guys. I'm not that athletic. I'm not a very skilled thrower. I'm going to have to compete and I'm going to have to work. I want to win this. And so I've got to compete to win every throw, every event, the whole day. And that's what it would take. And it was a bad reminder because I remember they had us in these dorm rooms, right? I'm rooming with like 3 other throwers in a dorm room and the shower didn't have a curtain on it. It was really weird. By laying in bed and I'm going, man, you totally blew it. You didn't compete to win. You competed not to lose. And so I vowed from there, I was like, that's never going to happen again. I may lose because I overcompete, if you will. I may go after a throw too hard, some people would say, but I know that I will be okay with it. And I'll be able to lay in the bed at night and go, you know what? I competed to win today and I just didn't win.
I feel like that lesson that you learned there in 2012, I feel like the answer is going to be yes here. Do you use that same attitude when you're working with Sornex, when you're working on being a husband, being a parent? Is that kind of has that transcended all the way through?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, that's a great point, is if to be a better husband, to be a better father, I got to take risks and I got to do stuff like we talked about earlier. My eighth grade son, and I know people won't agree with this, but he doesn't have a cell phone, right? He doesn't have social media, and he's not going to, I'm not going to give him a cell phone until he starts to drive. And that's just who we are and what we think right now, because I have seen, I've talked about it. I've seen the effects of social media, and you look at the stats of anxiety and depression, crazy link to cell phones. And so that is hard for him at times, I think, not that he is asking for one, but the stand we've made as a family in that, right? But I'm competing to win. I'm competing to win, hopefully, his future, his mind and his growth and development as a man, because I just think that that's critical for me as a father and a husband. You're right, man. As I got to compete to win, and it's hard.
It's the biggest victory you can ever have.
Yes.
The husband and the parent, man, biggest one you can have. We're gonna switch to something a little bit more lighthearted. Lately, and I don't know how long it's been, but you're doing some kind of collab or something with Little Debbie. Yeah. First of all, don't ever make that. Don't put that. Don't do that. Dude, product placement. Holy cow, this guy is amazing.
Probably like place it up here. Yeah.
I knew I should have waited so we could do this in person, so we could have like a taste test. That's, dang it. I knew I missed the opportunity here.
I'm always game for that.
So what's going on with this Little Debbie thing, man? This is quirky. This is unique.
Oh man. So Little Debbie snack cakes, right? Little Debbie is something I grew up on. I love Little Debbie.
Yes.
Yes. Most people do, right? And so I just started including them in some of my videos. So back to that whole Big Daddy thing. Big Daddy was a potential #1 overall draft pick slot receiver that had a problem with Little Debbie and and so my trainers and coaches would always remind Daddy, like, hey, dude, you got to cut back on the Little Debbies, So I started including Little Debbie in some of my videos and just some of my stuff on social media, just how much I enjoy Little Debbie. I love the stuff. And what's funny, man, is one of my followers reached out to, is the grandson of Little Debbie herself. Yeah, she's real. She has an office and everything.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And so long story short, I got a call from the marketing department and they said, hey man, I don't know if you're going to believe this. And we're just going to say it. Little Debbie walked down the hall and said, I don't know this guy. I've seen some of his stuff, but we got to do something with him. He seems to fit us pretty well.
You got Little Debbie approved.
I know.
Wow. That's a stamp of approval. I feel like she doesn't give out her.
No.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they're a very conservative brand. And so I think that's why we worked well together. So I've been able to work with them. I am an official brand ambassador for Little Debbie. So I work with them. They send me some free product, and I'll do a video like you referenced earlier, a video between the two dads at a football game, and it's a Little Debbie themed video that they asked me to do. And so it's fun, man. And that's part of the, that's what's funny is they said, hey, you're doing great for us, man. You're bringing us to a market we didn't previously touch much. I'm like, yeah, because here we are in the strength and the fitness industry championing
right, yeah.
workout,
which at one hand doesn't make sense, but then makes a whole lot of sense.
I know, man. But with that, I get to make swag, so I have a licensing opportunity with them. So yeah, that's the Little Debbie lifting team. I make some shirts and banners and just have some fun with it. And that's what I want to do with it, honestly, man, is have some fun. Because like we talked about, it's a very serious industry. Might as well have some fun. We're all worried about macros and calories and all this. And yet there's a lot of us that just want to get big and strong, and let's have a zebra cake after we squat, man.
I love the still shot one. So you got this, and again, you got to go to a social media to really appreciate this, but you got this thrower, big beard. I mean, just, he looks the part. Let me just say that, right? As far as the lifting and sore necks and all this stuff, right? And you get this very contemplative black and white. I don't know whose decision that was, if that was Little Debbie's crew or yours or you, but that was a great decision. This black and white contemplative picture of him. You have this great quote that you always mix in one of the Little Debbie products. And I think this is the photo is a big deal, but then at the end of every one, you say, I'm so glad I could entertain and motivate you with my black and white fit photo and great quote. Yeah. Every one of them. It doesn't work singularly. All together is just a great, like you want to read these things. It's preposterous and perfect all at the same time.
I appreciate it. I started doing those a couple of years ago, Motivation Wednesday, because I kind of, you know how social media is, man, as you scroll through and you're like, holy cow, everyone is being so motivating. It's just like, I got motivation overload. You know, I feel like a scumbag because I'm not motivated enough. Right. So I started doing these just like as satire, like, and so I'm glad you like them because I have fun doing them because I'm like, okay, what's a ridiculous quote that I can twist in some Swiss rolls into, and I can be a ridiculous pose, you know? So
the world wants to know, you can only pick one. What is your favorite Little Debbie?
The GOAT is the oatmeal cream pie.
Oh, it is so good.
It's on my Mount Rushmore, and it's the number one.
So fill out the Mount Rushmore. What else? What are your top? I agree. Oatmeal cream pie. Come on, man, get out of here. They're awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree. Also on my Mount Rushmore in no particular order is iced honey bun, which you can only get in from the gas station size.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's you got to remember that. Mm-hmm. The chocolate cupcake, which people say.
I knew you were going to.
Right here,
nice.
Chocolate cupcake, and then the Nutty Bunny. So when I was in high school, the Nutty Bunny.
Nutty Bunny or Nutter Bar? Which one is it?
It's called Nutty Bunny. They changed their name.
Nutty Bunny. Okay, it used to be Nutter Bar, I think, or something, right? Yeah. I know it is. That's the one. Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I could get that from the little cafeteria thing for 35 cents. Mm-hmm. Get one every day because I was like, man, there's protein in it. It's got peanut butter. So I convinced myself that I was like getting extra protein every day.
Man, they're so good. They come out with, I mean, it's got to be a fun place to work, right? I mean, you're making dessert, snacks, 24/7, right? What a great, we're doing too much serious stuff here, doing weights and pole vault pits and stuff like that, man. We need to get in the little snack game, man. Little Debbie's got it going on.
And that's what's cool about Little Debbie is that, so a while back, I was like, I had an order pop up on my phone because it's from my merch. And I was like, oh, cool. I got an order. I wonder who I'm sending it to. And it says it's to McKee. And I'm like, wait a second. And so I hit up my marketing guy. I was like, hey, like, is this McKee, like McKee Foods, whose name's on the back, who really owns Little Debbie? And he's like, oh, dude, that's the McKee family. They just ordered your stuff. I ordered a shirt from you. I'm like, I'll send it right now for free. Like, keep them happy. But it turns out like their executive level and the people in charge, they love to train. And so they've got I guess they've got a really cool weight room. They've got a training facility on their campus, and their C-level people love to train and they do CrossFit and they do different training and stuff. And so it's the marketing people said, man, this is a great fit because our executive level has a focus, which to me is kind of cool, as a snack cake brand to have a focus, not only corporately, but personally on fitness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That'd be like, Gil or Sorinex having a, how to pig out initiative. I mean, how do you eat more? How do you gluttonize? That's awesome. Well, Daniel, as we wrap up, so you come from a track background, doing great things at Sorinex. Obviously, just from listening to you, great father and husband. Little Debbie, so cool. I love the legitimacy of two unique brands, coming together, two ideas coming together. What's next for you? You're still a young guy. Hate to break that to you. So you got long years ahead of you. What's coming up down the pipeline for you?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know, man. I don't know, honestly, that, I think just keep doing what I'm doing. I love creating. I love making videos and making fun of myself and having fun. My kids are starting to get older. Hopefully I can find time to help them with some throws coaching. They do some USATF and AAU stuff in the summer. And my oldest really loves a javelin. And I know absolutely nothing about the javelin. So I'm learning on that. And I think that's kind of what I want to do, man, as my kids are getting older. And just as I know it's coming soon to be they're going to be up in the high school and then out of the house and everything. I just want to cherish these moments, man. It seems like everything goes so fast. Everything, just time is just flying by. And again, not to beat a dead horse here, but life is so short. Life is so precious for us to not have joy. And so one of the things that I have for my boys is I have the 4 pillars of McKim Men, and one of them is to have joy. And so I want to instill within them having joy, having fun, creating joy in other people's lives. And so hopefully just keep doing that, keep doing my job, making stupid videos, probably run out of ideas one day and go from there.
Well, you can't leave us in suspense. If it's okay, I'm going to ask you. You said the 4 pillars. One is joy. What's our other 3 here for McKim Men?
You've got love Jesus,
Nice.
Love God and share Jesus is number 1. Number 2, not in the order after that, right? Is to protect. I want my boys to protect. Number 3 is to work hard. Number 4 is to have joy. And so I created these a couple of years ago, and so I told my wife, I was like, cool. And I got this sheet. We laminated it, and I was like, I got to put it somewhere so the boys see it every day. For them and for me, is if these are the 4 pillars of McKim Men, these are the things we want to live by. This is what our house is structured on. This is the way we want to go. And so what are the 2 places that boys go to every day, multiple times? It's to the fridge.
Yeah. Okay.
To the toilet.
Bathroom. Okay, good. I was gonna say, well, yeah. They're like mine. Yeah. Yep.
You voted no on putting it over the toilet. So
what?
I know it's on the fridge. But yeah, that's the things to encourage me, to challenge me, but also to hopefully instill that and encourage and challenge them that these are the 4 pillars of McKim Men. This is who we want to be and who we're going to strive for. Because I feel if we can stay within those pillars and parameters, we're doing stuff right.
Boy, hard to argue with that. I'm gonna give you your last video idea, because we talked about the track coach changing clothes, right? That's one. So you got your 4 pillars of McKim Men, which I love. You gotta do some video where you talk about that, but then also talk about the 4 pillars of Little Debbie, and it's got to be, Nutter Bar. Daniel, man, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to get to know you. Awesome that, the things that you're creating and doing successfully today, work and professionally and personally, all balances on, track background, athletic background, and family background. So just so cool to see that just blossoming and how you're affecting other people in positive manner. I just love that to death. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been an honor, bud.
Absolutely.